Why are you hurting?
A storm that should have erased an entire coast stopped, and witnesses swear it wasn't a machine or a fleet, just one quiet human holding on to something that shouldn't have survived. Where are you watching from? Subscribe to help this channel grow. Now, the story begins. The morning air on Thalaros 2 tasted like salt and old wood. Caleb Reeves worked alone on the pier, fingers moving over warped planks with practiced efficiency. His father's boat, the Resolute, creaked in its mooring slip, new cracks spiderwebbing across the hull despite yesterday's repairs. Nobody noticed him there. They never did. His father passed without looking, carrying nets toward the larger vessels. The man's shoulders were broad, legendary, everything Caleb's weren't. The silence between them had weight, heavy as anchor chain. Caleb bent back to his work, sealing a crack that would probably reopen by sunset. Everything broke here, eventually. The sea saw to that. Then he noticed the light. It pulsed from the far end of the abandoned pier, blue and gray like bruised sky. Wrong color for dawn? Wrong rhythm for anything natural. Caleb wiped his hands and walked toward it, ignoring the muttered warnings from early shift fishermen. They knew what was out there. They'd been avoiding it for days. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, body translucent and crystalline, internal light flickering sad rhythms. Lycie. Everyone knew her name because everyone knew to stay away. Christery. Defective. Emotional parasite. Or so the rumors went. Tiny fragments drifted from her like glowing dust, each one a piece of her literally coming apart. Caleb stopped 3 feet away. Up close, she was beautiful in a way that hurt to see, like stained glass moments before shattering. Cracks ran through her torso, pulsing with each shallow breath. He should have walked away, should have done what everyone else did. Instead, he asked, "Why are you hurting?" Her head snapped up. Eyes like prisms caught the sunrise, splitting it into colors that didn't exist in human spectrum. She stared at him as if he'd spoken an alien language, which, in a way, he had. Nobody asked that question. Her voice came out fractured, matching her body. "Because I absorbed too much pain." From who? From everyone. Another fragment broke free, drifting between them. Caleb watched it dissolve into morning air, taking something irreplaceable with it. Without thinking, he sat down beside her. The gesture was simple, unremarkable. On Thalaros 2, it was revolutionary. Lisa's light steadied just slightly. The cracks stopped spreading, though they didn't heal. "You're not afraid," she whispered. Caleb looked at the water, at his father's boat with its unsealable fractures, at the town that never saw him. Maybe I just recognized the feeling. For the first time in months, Lisa felt something besides shame. It was small, barely noticeable, like the first drop of rain before a storm. It felt like hope. Behind them, his father had stopped walking. He stared at his son sitting beside the broken alien, jaw tight with something that might have been fear or might have been recognition. He turned away without speaking. He always did. But Caleb didn't notice. He was watching the sun rise over the ocean, next to someone who understood what it meant to be invisible while everyone looked straight at you. "I'm Caleb," he said. Her light brightened, just enough to notice. "Lisa." The fragment that drifted between them caught the dawn, refracting it into something that looked almost like promise. Caleb came back the next morning, then the next. By the 4th day, it was routine. Lisa looked surprised every time he appeared, as if kindness had an expiration date she kept expecting to reach. "You don't have to keep coming," she said on the 5th morning, though her light brightened when she said it. "I know." Caleb sat in what had become his spot, shoulder almost touching hers. Not quite. "Want to explain what refractive memory actually means?" She tensed. Most people didn't ask. They just assumed and feared. "I don't read minds," she said carefully. "I mirror emotions. When someone near me feels something strongly, I absorb it, transform it into light. It used to help, stabilize structures, seal microfractures, warm cold things. Used to? Her glow dimmed. Now it just breaks me. Too much shame, too much rejection. Crystari bodies aren't meant to hold that much pain. Caleb watched a fishing boat pass, its crew pointedly not looking their direction. So you're like emotional plumbing, except the pipes are cracking. Despite everything, Lisa laughed. The sound was strange, musical, like wind chimes in water. That's horrifying and accurate. Gift from my mother. She was a scientist, terrible at poetry, great at metaphors. His voice caught on the past tense. Was? Died when I was 12. Some kind of research accident. He picked at the pier's splintered wood. My father doesn't talk about it. Lisa's light pulsed sympathetic blue. She was absorbing his grief without meaning to, and he could see it physically manifesting as new hairline cracks along her collarbone. Does it hurt? He asked. When you do that? Only when the emotion is dark. Joy feels like sunlight. Anger feels like pressure. Sadness feels like breaking from the inside. Then maybe stop absorbing mine. I can't control it. That's why they exiled me, called me defective, a political embarrassment to the Crystari delegation. Caleb's jaw tightened. You're not defective. My body is literally fracturing. Because you feel things. That doesn't make you broken. It makes you alive. The words hung between them like the fragments that occasionally drifted from her skin. She stared at him with those impossible eyes, and for a moment, her light went completely still. Nobody's ever said that before. Then everyone else is an idiot. This time her laugh was genuine, and it didn't hurt. They sat in comfortable silence until footsteps approached. 3 young men from the fishing guild, faces twisted with the particular cruelty of people who need someone to feel superior to. Reeves, still hanging with the freak? Caleb didn't stand, didn't need to. Her name's Lysy. It's a thing, not a person. Heard it's been draining emotional energy from the whole pier. That's why the fish stopped coming. That's not how it works. You an expert now? Or just desperate enough to take whatever company you can get, even if it's defective alien trash? Lisa's light flared painful white. Caleb felt her start to fragment, absorbing their hostility like acid. He stood then. Not aggressive, just present. Solid. Walk away. Or what, you'll fight us? You're a boat mechanic who can't even fix his own father's ship. The words hit their mark, but Caleb didn't flinch. I'd rather be a freak lover who sees her than normal and blind. The leader stepped forward but stopped. Something in Caleb's eyes warned that invisibility wasn't the same as weakness. They left, muttering threats about reporting her to the Crystari authorities. Lisa was shaking, light strobing dangerously. You shouldn't have done that. Probably not. They'll make trouble. Definitely will. Then why? Caleb sat back down beside her, close enough now that their shoulders touched. She felt cool, like glass that's been in shade, but somehow comforting. Because asking why you're hurting was the first decent thing I've done in years. I'm not going to stop now. Far out on the horizon, dark clouds were gathering. The weather reports called it a seasonal anomaly. The old fisherman called it what it was. The storm of 70 years. The one that destroyed everything. And it was 3 days away. The morning routine became sacred. Caleb would arrive with the sunrise, 2 cups of terrible station-brewed coffee, and sit beside Lisa in silence that felt more like conversation than most people's words. She taught him to see what her light meant. Blue for calm, gold for curiosity, that strange purple-green when she tried to make jokes and wasn't sure if they landed. He taught her fishing village curses. She attempted them in her crystalline voice, pronunciation so wrong it made them both laugh until her light flickered white with joy. You sound like you're trying to order fish, not insult someone's mother, Caleb said, grinning. Your language is chaos. How do humans communicate at all? Badly. Loudly. We make it work. For 2 days it was almost peaceful. Her cracks stopped spreading. His shoulders lost some of their permanent tension, Then his father found him. Marcus Reeves stood at the pier's entrance, silhouette dark against the morning sun. Legendary fisherman. Harder, man. Need you on the Resolute. She's taking water. Caleb stood slowly. I'll be there in an hour. Now, Caleb. An hour. The silence stretched. Lysa's light dimmed, absorbing the conflict without meaning to. Father and son locked eyes across weathered planks, years of unspoken pain crystallizing in the salt air. Marcus's gaze flicked to Lisa, then back. Don't get involved with things you can't fix. Maybe I'm tired of only fixing things. His father's jaw worked like he was chewing on words too hard to swallow. Your mother thought she could fix everything too. Look where that got her. The words hit like a physical blow. Lisa's light strobed red-black, her body crackling audibly as she absorbed Caleb's sudden grief rage. Don't talk about her. Someone needs to, since you're too busy playing savior to some alien who's breaking apart anyway. Marcus turned away. 1 hour, or find another ship to work on. He left. Caleb stood frozen, hands shaking. Lisa was fragmenting badly now, pieces of her drifting away like crystalline snow. She'd absorbed too much, too fast. I'm sorry, she gasped. I can't control it when emotions are that strong. I absorb everything and it breaks me more and... Caleb knelt beside her, catching fragments in his palms. They were warm, pulsing with trapped emotion. Stop apologizing for feeling. I'm destroying myself. Then we'll figure out how to put you back together. She looked at him through tears that refracted light into rainbow patterns on the pier. Why do you care this much? Because you asked me why I'm hurting. Nobody's done that since my mother died. He carefully placed the fragments in his pocket. I'm just returning the favor. That afternoon, Caleb worked on the Resolute in silence. The boat was dying. New cracks appeared faster than he could seal them, spreading like infection through the hull. Marcus watched him work with that expression Caleb could never read. Disappointment, probably. When wasn't it? Storm's 3 days out, his father said finally. They're talking evacuation. The pier can't take it. Neither can half the boats. No, they can't. Marcus paused. That thing you're sitting with every morning. She's Crystari, yeah? Her name's Liz. They can manipulate physical structures. Crystallize. Seal. Caleb's hands stopped moving. No. Could save the entire pier. The boats. Everything. It would kill her. She's already fragmenting from absorbing regular emotions. You're talking about structural stress from a 70-year storm. See? Better one alien than 300 humans. Caleb stood, wrench still in hand. You don't get to sacrifice her. I'm not sacrificing anyone. I'm stating facts. If she's absorbing emotions anyway, might as well be for something useful. She's not a tool. Marcus's voice dropped. Your mother died because she got too close to Crystari research. Thought she could prove they weren't dangerous. I'm not losing my son to the same stupid kindness. Maybe stupid kindness is better than smart cruelty. His father had no answer for that. That evening, Caleb returned to the pier. Lisa sat in the same spot, light dim, more cracks visible than this morning. They want to use you, he said without preamble, for the storm. I know. The Crystari delegation leader already contacted me. Offered to forgive my exile if I stabilize the pier structures. You can't do it. I have to. It's hundreds of lives, Caleb. It's your life. She smiled sadly, light pulsing that particular shade that meant acceptance of painful truth. I break either way. At least this way it matters. He sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched. There has to be another way. There isn't. On the horizon, the storm clouds grew darker. In 2 days, the storm of 70 years would hit Thalaros II with the force of divine wrath, and Lisa was planning to stand in front of it alone. Caleb spent the next morning searching for alternatives. There had to be something, some technology, some other solution that didn't require Lysa fragmenting herself into nothing. He found her at the usual spot, but something was different. Her light was brighter, more determined. "I'm going to save your father's boat," she said before he could speak. "Lisi, no, not the whole storm, just one boat. I can do that much without completely breaking." Her light flickered uncertain purple. "I think?" She was already walking toward the Resolute before Caleb could argue. His father was there, checking the newest cracks with the tired expression of a man watching something beloved die slowly. "Lisa, you don't have to prove anything to him." "I'm not proving anything. I'm helping." She approached the boat carefully, hand extended. "May I?" Marcus stared at her, then at Caleb, then back to her crystalline fingers hovering inches from his life's work. He nodded once. Lisa placed her palm against the largest crack. Her light blazed gold, then white, then colors that had no names. The fracture lit up from within, and Caleb watched in awe as the wood seemed to remember its wholeness. Splinters realigned, gaps sealed. The crack disappeared as if it had never existed. Then another crack healed, and another. The Resolute's entire hull illuminated like it was made of stained glass. Decades of damage reversing in seconds. Lysa's legs buckled. Caleb caught her before she hit the pier. First time he'd truly held her. She was lighter than he expected, body cool and smooth like river stones. New cracks spiderwebbed across her torso, glowing angry red. "Told you," she whispered, light flickering weakly. "I break when I help." "You're an idiot." "I've been called worse." Her laugh turned into a cough. Fragments broke free, drifting between them like luminescent ash. Marcus approached slowly, looking at his boat with something close to wonder, then at the alien who'd saved it at such obvious cost. "Thank you," he said quietly. It might have been the first time Caleb heard his father thank anyone. Lisa just nodded, too exhausted to speak. Caleb carried her back to her spot at the end of the pier. She curled against him, light dimming to barely perceptible pulses. "Your father carries grief like you do," she murmured. "I absorbed some of it when I touched the boat. It soaks into everything he owns. He loved my mother. Then she died researching Crystari, trying to prove you weren't dangerous. I think he blames your entire species. Is that why he's so afraid of me?" "I think he's afraid of caring about anything ever again." Lysa's light flickered understanding. "That's the saddest thing I've absorbed all week." They sat in silence as the sun climbed higher. Caleb noticed the fragments that had broken from her were scattered around them, each one still faintly glowing. "What happens to these?" He picked one up carefully. It was warm, pulsing against his palm. "They fade eventually. Unless—" She hesitated. "Unless what?" "They hold memories, emotions I've absorbed. If you wanted, you could experience them. But it's invasive. I don't recommend it." Caleb looked at the fragment, then at Lisa's fractured body. "Show me." "Caleb, I want to understand what you feel." She touched the fragment in his hand. It flared bright, and suddenly Caleb was drowning in sensation. He felt Lisa's shame when the Crystari caste leaders called her defective, her terror at being exiled, the months of isolation on Thalaros II, absorbing hostility from every passerby, the constant grinding pain of fracturing from within. And then, cutting through it all like sunlight through storm clouds, the moment he'd asked, "Why are you hurting?" The pure shock of it, the hope, the fear that it was temporary. The fragment faded, and Caleb was back on the pier, gasping. "That's what you live with every day. I told you it was invasive." "That's what I did to you? That question?" Her light steadied, warming. "You gave me the first moment in months where I wasn't ashamed of my own existence." Before Caleb could respond, footsteps approached, multiple sets moving with purpose, 3 Crystari representatives, crystalline bodies rigid with bureaucratic authority. Behind them, the fishing guild leader who'd confronted them days ago, smirking. "Lisa Delaron," the lead Crystari said, voice like glass chimes. "You are ordered to report for immediate deportation. Your presence creates political complications with the human settlement." "She saved a man's boat today," Caleb said, standing. "Unauthorized use of abilities, proving the very instability that led to her exile." The Crystari's light pulsed cold blue. "She will be removed before the storm. You're deporting her so you don't have to feel embarrassed about how you treated her. Human, you don't understand Crystari affairs. I understand you're more worried about politics than people." The Crystari ignored him, addressing Lisa directly. "Unless you can provide service that outweighs the diplomatic cost of your presence." The words hung heavy with implication. They all knew what service they meant. Stand against the storm, save the pier, die doing it. Lisa's light flickered uncertain. "How long do I have to decide?" "Storm arrives in 36 hours. Choose before then." They left. The fishing guild leader paused to whisper, "Should have stayed away, Reeves. Now she's not your problem anymore." When they were alone again, Caleb sat back down beside Lise. Closer this time. Close enough that his warmth offset her chill. "We're leaving," he said. "Tonight. I'll steal a shuttle if I have to. You'd be exiled. Better than watching you die." Her light pulsed that shade of purple gold that meant she was feeling too many things at once. "The storm will kill hundreds if the pier collapses. That's not your responsibility. Isn't it, if I have power to prevent it? Not if it costs your life." She leaned against his shoulder. For the first time since her exile, Lisa let herself imagine something besides pain and shame. She imagined running away with this strange, quiet human who asked questions nobody else thought to ask. The storm clouds crept closer. Time was running out for everything. Caleb couldn't sleep. He spent the night in his father's workshop, searching through his mother's old belongings for anything that might help. Her research had focused on Crystari. Surely there was something useful. He found the diary at dawn, tucked behind old maritime charts. His mother's handwriting, precise and eager. The entries made his chest tight. She'd been studying Crystari abilities for years, fascinated by what she called refractive memory. She'd theorized it wasn't a defect at all, but an ancient power the Crystari had systematically suppressed because it made them vulnerable. Feeling others' emotions threatened their carefully constructed hierarchies. There was a sketch of a Crystari with light radiating outward, labeled, "What if the breaking isn't failure? What if it's evolution? What if they're meant to shatter and reform stronger?" The last entry was dated 3 days before her death. "They threaten to revoke my research license if I continue. They say I'm romanticizing a genetic defect, but I've seen the data. Crystari with refractive memory can create emotional resonance strong enough to affect quantum structures. They're not parasites. They're bridges. And that terrifies the people in power." Caleb read it 3 times, hands shaking. His mother had died defending people like Lisa. He found his father in the kitchen, coffee growing cold in his hands. "Did you know?" Caleb dropped the diary on the table. "About what Mom was really researching?" Marcus stared at the worn leather cover. "I knew. And you never told me? What was I supposed to say? That she died because she believed in aliens over her own family's safety?" His father's voice cracked. "That she chose research over coming home. She chose to be decent. That's not the same as abandonment. It got her killed." "No, fear got her killed. Other people's fear." Caleb opened the diary to the last entry. "She proved Lisa's power isn't a defect. It's what Crystari used to be before they decided feeling was weakness." Marcus read in silence. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. "I destroyed your art supplies because I was terrified. You drew like she did. Saw beauty in everything. I thought if I made you harder, I'd protect you." He swallowed hard. "I just made you lonelier." "Yeah, you did. I'm sorry, Caleb. The words hung between them, fragile as Lisa's fragments. Caleb wanted to stay angry, but he saw his father for what he was, a man who'd loved deeply and learned the wrong lessons from loss. She'd want us to help Lisa, Caleb said quietly. I know, but I don't know how to save her without losing her. Marcus closed the diary carefully, reverent. Your mother wrote something once, said the strongest structures aren't the ones that never break. They're the ones that know how to heal. Outside, the storm was 18 hours away. Caleb found Lisa at sunset, light dim with exhaustion and decision. I'm going to do it, she said before he could speak. Stand against the storm. I found my mother's research. She proved your power was... I know what my power is. Was, could have been. Lisa's light flickered sad purple. But knowing doesn't change reality. I'm breaking either way. At least this way, I break for something that matters. You matter. Not to my people, not to this town, only to you. She turned to face him fully. That's why I have to do this, because you're the first person who ever asked why I was hurting. I need to answer that somehow. By dying? By being useful for once instead of just ashamed. Caleb sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched. The contact sent warmth through her crystalline structure, temporarily stabilizing the newest cracks. You were never useless. Everyone else was just blind. That's a kind lie. It's an uncomfortable truth. He pulled out the fragments he'd been collecting, a dozen pieces of her cupped in his palms. These hold memories, right? Yes, but... So if you fragment completely, pieces of you survive. Your emotions, your experiences. Scattered fragments aren't alive, Caleb. But they're not nothing either. He held her gaze. Promise me something. If you do this, if you really decide to stand against that storm, promise you'll try to come back, even if it's just pieces at first. That's not how it works. Promise anyway. Lisa's light steadied, brightening to something close to hope. She reached out slowly, carefully, and took his hand. Flesh and crystal, human warmth, and alien cool. I promise I'll try. They sat like that as the sun set, hands linked, watching the ocean turn colors that didn't have names. For someone who'd spent months absorbing nothing but shame and pain, the sensation of just existing peacefully beside another being was overwhelming. Her light pulsed gold. Pure joy. Caleb felt it too, warmth spreading through his chest. Is this what happy feels like to you? This is what safe feels like. I'd forgotten there was a difference. The moment stretched, perfect and fragile. Then Lisa spoke again, softer. Can I tell you something? Always. Adine, when I first absorbed your emotions, that day you asked why I was hurting, I felt something I'd never encountered before. It confused me for days. Her light flickered uncertain. It was grief, deep grief. But underneath it was this stubborn, illogical determination to keep caring anyway, to keep seeing people even when it hurt, to keep asking questions even when silence was safer. That's not special. That's just being human. No, her fingers tightened around his. That's being you. Most humans I've met give up much faster. They choose blindness to avoid pain. Her light pulsed warm purple gold. You chose me instead. Caleb's throat was tight. You were the first person who didn't look through me like I was furniture. We're both very good at being invisible. Maybe that's why we see each other. The storm clouds towered on the horizon now, dark as old bruises. Lightning flickered in their depths, counting down to collision. 12 hours left. Stay with me tonight? Lisa asked quietly. Before everything. I'm not going anywhere. They sat on the pier until stars appeared, then disappeared behind advancing storm fronts. Lisa's light pulsed steady rhythms against the growing dark. Caleb matched his breathing to it, and for the first time since his mother died, he felt like maybe being seen was enough. Maybe it was everything. The Crystari delegation leader arrived at dawn, crystalline body rigid with bureaucratic precision. Caleb and Lys were still on the pier, neither having slept. "Time to decide," the Crystari said. "Serve or leave." But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood an elderly Crystari, body so old it had begun clouding like frosted glass. His light pulsed in patterns Caleb didn't recognize. "Archivist Thelen," Lisa whispered, shocked. "You're supposed to be dead." "Conveniently declared deceased by the current caste leadership," the old Crystari said, voice like distant wind chimes. "But I heard rumors of a refractive child exiled to human space. I had to see for myself." The delegation leader's light flashed irritated red. "Archivist, this is not your concern." "Isn't it? You're about to sacrifice the last naturally occurring refractive Crystari. That seems concerning." Thelen moved closer to Lysy, examining her cracks with something like reverence. "Child, do you know what you are? Defective, broken, political liability. You're sacred." He turned to address Caleb and the gathering crowd of curious fishermen. 3,000 years ago, before the Great Crystallization, all Crystari had refractive abilities. We were emotional conduits, bridges between species, healers of quantum structures. We built the first peace treaties in galactic history by literally feeling each other's pain. The delegation leader tried to interrupt, but Thelen's light blazed brighter. Then the purity movement decided emotions were weakness. They systematically bred out refractive abilities, declared anyone who still manifested them as genetically inferior. It took them 900 years to nearly succeed. He touched Lisa's shoulder gently. "You're not a defect. You're evidence of what we used to be before we decided to stop feeling." Lisa's light flickered chaotic colors. "But I break. I can't control it." "Because you were never taught. Your ability isn't meant to absorb endlessly. It's meant to transform emotion into resonance and release it." Thelen glanced at Caleb. "He stabilizes you, doesn't he? When he's close?" "Yes, but that's human emotional coherence. Humans feel constantly powerfully without shame. They create stable resonance patterns." The old Crystari's light pulsed knowing purple. "With proper grounding, a refractive Crystari could absorb and channel forces that would shatter mountains, not by breaking, but by transforming." "You're saying she could survive the storm," Caleb said. "I'm saying with the right resonance pattern, she could do more than survive. She could prove what Crystari were meant to be." The delegation leader's light went white with rage. "This is sedition. You're encouraging violation of genetic purity standards. Your standards killed our species' soul. I'm trying to resurrect it." Marcus Reeves stepped forward from the crowd, his mother's diary in hand. This human scientist believed the same thing. That refractive Crystari were evolution, not defect. They killed her for saying it out loud. Thelen took the diary carefully, reading the last entry. His light dimmed with sorrow. "Dr. Reeves, I corresponded with her before my death. She understood what my own people refused to see." "Can you teach Lys?" Caleb asked urgently. "How to channel instead of break?" "In 6 hours?" "No, but I can teach you how to anchor her." Thelen's ancient eyes fixed on Caleb. "Human emotional resonance is chaotic but stable, like your oceans, constantly moving but fundamentally coherent. If you maintain physical contact and emotional consistency, you create a grounding pattern. She could channel storm energy through you, release it safely." "What happens to him?" Lisa demanded, light flashing protective red. "Pain, significant pain. His nervous system would experience every emotion she channels." Thelen paused. "But humans are remarkably good at surviving what should destroy them. It's your species' most frustrating quality." Marcus moved to stand beside his son. "There has to be another way." "There isn't. Not in the time we have." Caleb looked at Lysy. "I'll do it." "No. Her light blazed desperate white. "I won't hurt you. You've been hurting alone for months. Let me help. You could die. So could you. So could 300 fishermen if that pier collapses." He took her hand, feeling her cool crystal against his warm skin. "I'm not letting you break alone anymore." Lysa's light flickered through every color she possessed. Fear, gratitude, hope, desperation, and underneath it all, something that felt terrifyingly close to love. "This is insane," the delegation leader said. "No," Thelen replied. "This is what we used to be, before we forgot how to care about anything besides purity." He looked at the crowd of fishermen, then back to the Crystari leader. 3,000 years ago, a human and a Crystari stood together against the Void Cascade. He grounded her. She channeled it. They saved 17 colony worlds and created the first galactic alliance. His light pulsed ancient purple. "Maybe it's time we remembered that history." The delegation leader left without another word, light flickering with bureaucratic fury. The storm was 4 hours away. Thelen spent the remaining time teaching Caleb meditation techniques that humans had no business being able to learn. Feel your center, your emotional core. Humans call it different things. Heart, soul, gut instinct. Find what's constant in you and hold it. Caleb found his mother's face, his father's recent apology, the moment Lisi first looked at him like he was visible. "That's it," Thelen said. "Now imagine offering that stability to her, like extending a hand to someone drowning." Will it work? It worked once, 3,000 years ago. The old Crystari's light dimmed. I was there. I watched my sister stand against the void with a human engineer who loved her. They succeeded, but the purity movement erased the record afterward, declared it shameful that we'd needed human help. What happened to them? They lived, bonded, started a revolution that the purity movement spent 9 centuries suppressing. Thelen touched Caleb's shoulder. "Win or lose, you're restarting something my people tried very hard to kill. Thank you for that." As the storm clouds blotted out the sun, Caleb found his father standing by the Resolute, staring at the boat Lisi had saved. "I was wrong," Marcus said, "about everything. Your mother was right. You were right. And I wasted 7 years being angry that I couldn't control the universe. You were scared. That's not an excuse." "No, but it's an explanation." Caleb looked at the approaching storm. "If this goes badly, it won't. But if it does, I need you to know I never hated you. I just wanted you to see me." Marcus pulled his son into a fierce hug, the first in 7 years. "I see you, and you're exactly what your mother hoped you'd be." The first raindrops began to fall. The storm of 70 years had arrived. The storm hit like physics had taken it personally. Wind tore through the floating settlement, ripping loose anything not welded down. Rain fell sideways, needle-sharp. The ocean transformed from gentle provider to ancient fury, waves crashing against pier supports with sounds like cannon fire. Evacuation shuttles launched in controlled chaos. 300 fishermen, families, lifetime collections of memories compressed into emergency packs. The Crystari delegation disappeared first, of course. Bureaucrats always fled fastest. Only Thelen remained, ancient body braced against the wind, light pulsing steady instructions. Lysa stood at the pier's center point, structural nexus where all the support beams met. Her light was dim, fractured, terrified. Caleb stood beside her, one hand gripping hers, the other locked around a support beam. Wind tried to tear them apart. Rain made everything slippery. His father had tied safety lines around them both, the knots brutal and loving. "You can still leave," Lysa shouted over the wind. "The shuttles aren't an option. We've been through this." "Caleb, please, if this fails, if I can't control it, then we fail together." He squeezed her hand tighter. "I've spent 7 years being invisible. If I'm going out being seen." A massive wave hit, submerging the entire pier for 3 seconds. When it receded, 2 support beams were cracked, listing dangerously. Les's light flashed panic white. "It's starting. I can feel the structural stress." "It's too much? I can't?" "Yes, you can." Caleb pulled her closer, forehead nearly touching hers. "Remember what Thelen said. You don't absorb it. You transform it. I'm your anchor. Use me. I'll hurt you. Good. Better than watching you break alone." Another wave. Another crack. The pier groaned like a dying animal. Marcus stood at the pier's entrance with Thelen, holding his ground as the evacuation finished. "Last shuttle's leaving in 60 seconds. "Then it leaves without us," Caleb called back. His father nodded once, accepting. "Your mother would be proud. So am I." The shuttle lifted off, lights disappearing into storm chaos. They were alone. Lissa was fragmenting badly now, the stress too much even before she started channeling. Pieces of her broke free, scattering into wind and rain. "I can't do this," she gasped. "I'm not strong enough." "You're the strongest person I know. You survived months of everyone hating you, and you still tried to help them." Caleb cupped her face with his free hand, feeling crystal skin crack beneath his fingers. "You asked me why I was hurting that first morning. Now I'm asking you, why are you hurting?" "Because I'm breaking." "No. Why are you really hurting?" Her light flickered, steadied, blazed. "Because I'm afraid of losing you." "Then don't. Channel the storm and come back to me. Whole, healed. Prove every bastard who called you defective completely wrong." A support beam snapped with a sound like a gunshot. The pier tilted 15 degrees. They barely held on. Lissa's eyes met his. Prismatic. Terrified. Determined. "If I do this, if I channel that much force, you'll feel every emotion in the storm. Every fear. Every loss. Every moment of violence it's accumulated over 70 years. I felt worse. I felt 7 years of my father's silence. I can handle some angry weather." Despite everything, she almost laughed. "You're insane." "Boy, I prefer optimistically stupid." He pulled her closer, anchoring her with his presence. "Do it. Transform the storm. Show them what Crystari were meant to be." "What if I don't come back?" "You promised you'd try. That's enough." Another wave. The pier was dying. They had seconds, maybe less. Lysa placed her hand on Caleb's chest, directly over his heart. Her light pulsed once, twice, finding his rhythm. "You were the first person who asked why I was hurtin'," she whispered, "and you're going to be the last person I see." "That's morbid. That's romantic." She smiled. Actually smiled. "Humans are so strange." "Lucky for you." The next wave rose like a wall, dark as judgment, tall as buildings. It would crush everything. Lisa's light exploded outward. Not white, not blue, every color at once, colors that shouldn't exist, colors that hurt to perceive. Her body became translucent to the point of invisibility. Only the cracks remained visible, glowing like a constellation map written in pain. The storm's fury hit her. 70 years of accumulated rage, loss, violence, fear. Every ship that sank, every life lost, every moment of grief the ocean had witnessed and remembered, it slammed into Lysa like she was nothing, and she channeled it straight into Caleb. The pain was biblical. He felt every drowning, every goodbye screamed into wind, every widow's prayer, every child's terror, every sailor's last thought. 70 years of oceanic trauma compressed into his nervous system in 3 seconds that lasted 3 lifetimes. Caleb screamed. His father started forward, but Thelen held him back. "If you break the circuit, they both die." Lysa was dissolving, fragmenting into nothing, her body coming apart like she was made of light that had forgotten how to cohere. But the light wasn't dying, it was transforming. Every crack in her body became a channel. The storm's fury poured through her, transformed by passage through crystal and human determination, and redirected into the pier's structure. The cracks in the support beams lit up, not breaking, healing. The storm's force, reimagined as creative energy, fused the wood and metal stronger than they'd ever been. The pier stopped groaning, started glowing. Lisa was barely visible now, more constellation than person, but her hand still gripped Caleb's, and her light still pulsed to his heartbeat. "Stay with me," he gasped through the pain. "You promised." "I'm trying." Her voice was distant, fracturing. "It's so much. There's so much pain in this storm." "I know, I feel it. But there's more than pain. Feel deeper." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Under the drownings, under the grief, what else is there?" She reached deeper into the storm's memory, channeling broader, and found it. Love. Desperate love. Every prayer for safe return. Every reunion. Every moment of gratitude when someone came home alive. Every fisherman's song. Every mother's relief. Every child's joy at seeing their parents' boat return. The storm held that too. Lisa channeled it all. Pain and love, fury and hope, violence and reunion. The complete emotional history of every human who'd ever trusted the ocean. Her light blazed so bright it turned the storm clouds translucent. The pier crystallized, every weak point reinforced by emotional resonance, made physical. The boats in their slips sealed themselves. The entire structure transformed into something that could stand against hurricanes and laugh. The storm raged for 6 more hours. The pier didn't move, but Lisa dissolved completely into fragments, scattering across the water like luminescent rain. Caleb collapsed, finally releasing her hand that no longer existed. The pain had burned through every nerve he possessed. He couldn't feel his fingers, couldn't feel anything except the phantom sensation of her crystal skin against his palm. "No," he whispered. "You promised." The storm began to clear. Dawn light filtered through breaking clouds. Fragments of Lisa floated everywhere, hundreds of them, each glowing faintly. They drifted on wind and water, spreading across the entire pier district. Marcus and Thelen rushed forward. His father caught Caleb before he collapsed completely. "Did it work?" Caleb asked, vision blurring. "The pier's standing, stronger than before." Marcus's voice cracked. "Son, I'm sorry. We couldn't stop her from fragmenting." "Get the fragments," Caleb gasped. "All of them. She's still in there. She promised she'd try." "Caleb," she promised. He passed out holding a single fragment in his palm, feeling its faint pulse like a distant heartbeat, believing in impossible things because the alternative was unbearable. Caleb woke 3 days later in the medical bay, body wrapped in nerve-stabilizing fields. His father sat beside the bed, looking older than he'd ever been, holding a jar filled with glowing fragments. "How many?" Caleb's voice came out wrecked. 83 so far. Thelen says there could be 200 scattered across the district. We need all of them. Son, we don't even know if... We need all of them. Caleb tried to sit up, pain screaming through every nerve ending. She promised she'd try. That means she's still in there somewhere. We just have to put her back together. Marcus helped him sit, then carefully placed the jar in his hands. The whole town's been collecting them. Nobody told them to. They just started bringing fragments to the pier. Fishermen, families, even the ones who called her defective. Caleb looked at the fragments. Each one pulsed faintly, out of sync, like separate heartbeats searching for rhythm. They saw what she did, Marcus continued. Saw her dissolve, saving people who hated her. Changes perspective. Where's Thelen? Working on a reconstruction theory. Says if we arrange the fragments in the right pattern with the right emotional resonance. He trailed off. It's never been done before. Crysteri who fragment this completely don't come back. Then she'll be the first. Ursul, the medical tech, cleared him against her better judgment. Caleb could barely walk, but he made it to the pier anyway, leaning heavy on his father's shoulder. The sight stopped him cold. The entire fishing community was there. Hundreds of people, combing the water, the pier, the boats, searching for fragments. They'd organized into teams, mapping search grids, marking locations where light had been spotted. And at the center point where Lisa had made her stand, they'd built something. A collection matrix. Thelen's design. constructed by fishermen who barely understood the principles but executed it perfectly anyway. Crystalline frameworks salvaged from emergency supplies, arranged in patterns that mimicked crystallary neural structures. 237 fragments rested in the matrix, 237 pieces of Lysa, each glowing separate rhythms. "We don't know if it's all of them," Thelen said, approaching slowly. His ancient body looked even more frosted, worn by the storm he'd witnessed. "Some may have dissolved, some may be too small to find. It'll be enough." Caleb moved toward the matrix, every step agony. "What do I do?" "Place your hand at the center. Maintain emotional coherence, like you did during the storm, but gentler, constant. Let her fragments feel your presence and remember what it means to be whole." "That's it? That's everything. Human emotional resonance is chaos, but it's stable chaos. Predictable unpredictability." Thelen's light pulsed sad purple. "Christori spent 3,000 years trying to eliminate emotional variability. We forgot that life requires it." Caleb approached the matrix. Up close he could see memories flickering in the fragments. Moment of her exile, her first morning on the pier, the instant he'd asked why she was hurting, her terror during the storm, her determination anyway. "I'm here," he said quietly, placing his palm at the matrix center. "Just like I promised, I'm not going anywhere." Nothing happened. He stayed anyway. Hours passed. His father brought him food, water, a chair when standing became impossible. The crowd remained, watching in respectful silence. Still nothing. Days passed. Caleb's presence at the matrix became permanent. He slept in shifts, always maintaining contact. Marcus brought his mother's diary. Caleb read it aloud to the fragments, sharing her research, her hope, her belief that Crystari and humans were meant to help each other. The fragments pulsed slightly brighter. Weeks passed. The fishing community built a shelter around the matrix, protecting it from weather. Families brought meals. Children left drawings. Fishermen told stories about the storm, about how Lysa's light had looked like every star in the galaxy trying to shine at once. The fragments began pulsing in sync, slowly, barely perceptibly. Thelen monitored progress with instruments that read emotional resonance. "It's working. Glacially, but working." The fragments are remembering coherence, remembering what it felt like to be Lysa instead of just pieces of light. "How long?" "Near months, maybe longer. This has never been done. She'll be the first." Caleb adjusted his hand, maintaining contact even as his arm went numb. "She's worth waiting for." 2 months after the storm, something changed. The fragments stopped pulsing separately and began moving. Slowly at first, then with increasing confidence, they drifted toward each other within the matrix, attracted by some force that wasn't quite gravity and wasn't quite magnetism. It was memory. They remembered being whole. 3 months in, the fragments began fusing, not randomly but deliberately, rebuilding Lysa from the center out. First her core, then ribs of light, then the crystalline structure that approximated organs and nervous system. 4 months, and she had arms, legs, the basic architecture of a body. 5 months, and she had a face. Caleb watched it happen in real time, hand never leaving the matrix center, tears running down his face as piece by piece, fragment by fragment, Lysa reconstructed herself from scattered light. The town watched too. What started as curiosity became investment. They'd helped collect the fragments. Now they needed to see if it worked. On the morning of the 6th month, the last fragment clicked into place. Lysa's body lay in the matrix, fully formed, but still. No light, no movement. Just a crystalline sculpture of a person who used to be alive. Thelen checked readings, light dimming with sorrow. The structure is complete, but there's no consciousness, no animating force. "We rebuilt the body, but the person..." He couldn't finish. "No." Caleb pressed both hands to the matrix now, leaning close. "Lysa, I know you're in there. You promised you'd try. This is trying. Come back. Please. Nothing. I asked you why you were hurting, remember? First morning. You said you absorbed too much pain. I'm asking again now. Why are you hurting? Silence. Marcus placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Caleb, maybe. Why are you hurting? Louder now, desperate. Answer me, Lacey. Why are you hurting? The body remained still. Caleb's voice broke. You made me visible. For the first time in 7 years, someone actually saw me. You can't leave now. You can't make me go back to being invisible. Something flickered in the body's core. Faint, barely there. That's it. I'm here. I'm still here. I've been here for 6 months and I'll stay for 6 more if I have to. You're not alone. You were never alone. Not since that first morning. The flicker grew stronger. Come on, Lacey. Show me that stubborn Crystari determination. Show me you're more than what your people said you were. Show me you're exactly who you were always meant to be. Light bloomed in the body's center. Blue gold, the color of hope mixed with determination. Then purple. Then white. Then every color at once. Lisa's eyes opened. She drew breath that she didn't technically need, body remembering the habit of living. Her light pulsed strong, steady, completely synchronized with Caleb's heartbeat. No cracks, no fractures, no pain. She was whole. Her first word came out crystalline, perfect, home. Caleb. He laughed and sobbed simultaneously. You took your time. I promised I'd try. She sat up slowly, examining hands that were both new and ancient. It just took 6 months. The entire fishing community erupted in cheers so loud they scared the fish. Relearning how to be alive took time. Lisa spent the first week remembering basics, walking, speaking, the difference between touching wood and touching water, how to eat, though she didn't need to, how to laugh without feeling ashamed. Caleb stayed close, patient as tide, letting her rediscover herself at her own pace. It's strange, she said one morning, watching sunrise from their pier. I remember fragmenting, remember being scattered. But I also remember being whole the entire time, like I existed in all states simultaneously. Quantum superposition of identity? Something like that. She examined her hand, turning it to catch light. No cracks, no fractures. I feel different, stronger, like breaking and reforming changed something fundamental. Thelen confirmed it with scans. Your crystalline structure reorganized during reconstruction, denser, more resilient, and your refractive ability. He paused, light pulsing, amazed purple. You're channeling ambient emotions constantly now, but instead of breaking, you're dispersing the energy harmlessly. You've become what we used to be, what we could be again. The Crystari delegation returned 2 weeks after Lysa's resurrection, bureaucratic fury barely contained in their rigid light patterns. This is unprecedented, impossible. You should have dissipated completely. Lysa stood at the pier's center, light steady and unashamed. I was grounded. Human emotional resonance provided stability during reconstruction. Grounded by a human. The delegation leader's voice dripped distaste. This violates every principle of Crystari independence. Your principles tried to kill me. His kindness brought me back. She gestured at Caleb, who stood beside her, hand ready to take hers if needed. Maybe your principles are wrong. You're advocating for dependence on an inferior species. I'm advocating for connection. There's a difference. More Crystari were arriving now, not delegation officials, but ordinary citizens, young ones mostly, bodies showing slight refractive shimmer that suggested latent abilities. They'd heard rumors of a resurrect Crystari. They had to see. One approached cautiously, a female whose light flickered uncertain. Is it true? You absorbed a 70-year storm and survived. I absorbed it, channeled it, and dissolved. Then I spent 6 months learning how to be whole again. Surviving is generous. Lisa's light pulsed welcoming gold. Who are you? Denna, I was declared defective 2 years ago. Refractive abilities. They were going to exile me next cycle. Her light dimmed with shame. I thought I was broken. You're not broken. They're afraid. Of what? Of people who feel things, of abilities they can't control, of anything that challenges their rigid, perfect order. Lissa reached out, offering her hand. But you don't have to be ashamed anymore. Denna took her hand hesitantly. When their crystalline fingers touched, both their lights flared, recognizing kin. I can feel your determination, Denna whispered. Your hope. It's not breaking me. It's just... there. Beautiful. That's what refractive ability was always meant to do. Witness emotion without judgment. Hold it without being destroyed. Transform it into something useful. More young Crystari pressed forward, each showing signs of suppressed refractive abilities. The delegation leader tried to maintain order, but something was shifting. This is illegal assembly, unauthorized discussion of prohibited abilities. We're not discussing, Lissa said calmly. We're existing. That shouldn't be illegal. Theln stepped forward, ancient body braced for what came next. 3,000 years ago, the purity movement convinced our species that feeling was weakness. They were wrong then. They're wrong now. This child proved it by surviving what should have killed her, then reconstructing herself from scattered light. She had human help, the delegation leader snapped. Yes, and that's exactly the point. Thelon's light blazed with decades of suppressed fury. We were meant to work with other species, to be bridges, emotional conduits. We gave that up for genetic purity, and look what it cost us. We're a dying species with a mortality rate that climbs every cycle because we've bred out our adaptability. The crowd of young Crystari murmured agreement. But refractive abilities could change that, Theln continued. Emotional connection creates neuroplasticity, allows adaptation. Lissa didn't just survive, she evolved, became stronger by embracing what you call weakness. Prove it, the delegation leader challenged. Prove refractive ability is anything but defect. Lissy looked at Caleb. He nodded. She placed both hands on the Pier's central support beam, the same spot where she dissolved 6 months ago. Her light pulsed outward, gentle but pervasive. And suddenly everyone present could feel what she felt. Not invasive telepathy, just presence. The emotional reality of standing at the intersection of sea and sky, feeling gratitude for survival, hope for future, and unshakable determination to never be ashamed again. Every Crystari present experienced it. The young ones wept. Even the delegation leader's light flickered uncertain. That's what we lost, Theln said quietly. The ability to truly witness each other, to feel without judgment, to transform pain into understanding. He turned to the delegation leader. Tell me that's weakness. I dare you. The leader couldn't. Her light had gone quiet, almost contemplative. One of the young Crystari spoke up, voice trembling. If we learned refractive abilities properly, could we help other species? Build alliances like the old records mention? Yes, Lissa said. Would humans accept us? Caleb stepped forward. Humans accept anyone willing to ask why someone's hurting instead of looking away. That's pretty much our only qualification for friendship. The crowd laughed, tension breaking. I want to learn, Denna said. Not hide my abilities, actually develop them. Me too, another young Crystari added. And me. Count me in. The delegation leader watched her carefully constructed order dissolve, and for the first time in her bureaucratic career, she had no protocol for the situation. This will cause problems, she said finally. Good, Lissa replied. Problems mean change. Change means evolution. Evolution means survival. The purity movement won't accept this. Then the purity movement is welcome to fragment and see if their precious genetic standards reconstruct them. I'm betting they won't. Lysa's light pulsed, challenging purple. I'm also betting more Crystari are secretly refractive than your records admit, and now they know it's not shameful. How long before your entire system collapses? The delegation leader had no answer. She left, took her rigid officials, and disappeared into the star lanes. But 43 young Cristari stayed. We don't have facilities to teach refractive abilities, one admitted. The knowledge was suppressed centuries ago. Then we'll figure it out together, Caleb said. Humans are excellent at improvisation. Cristari are excellent at structure. Between us, we'll build something new. Theln's ancient light pulsed with something that looked like joy. 3,000 years. It took 3,000 years, but we're finally going back to what we were meant to be. Better, Lisa corrected. We're becoming what we were meant to become. Evolution, not regression. Marcus approached, carrying supplies. Town voted. You can use the community center for training. Figure humans owe you after what you did. You don't owe me anything. We owe you everything. Least we can do is give you space to teach others how to be brave. That night, Caleb and Lisa sat at their pier, watching stars reflect off calm water. The storm was memory now. Everything had changed. What happens next? Lisa asked. You teach Cristari how to feel without shame. We figure out human Cristari cooperation protocols. Probably argue a lot about emotional theory versus practical application. He took her hand. Normal stuff. Normal for us is very strange. Lucky for everyone. She leaned against his shoulder, light pulsing content gold. Thank you for not looking away when everyone else did. Thank you for answering when I asked why you were hurting. I'm not hurting anymore. Good. That's how it should be. Far above, a shooting star streaked across the sky. Caleb didn't make a wish. He didn't need to. Everything he wanted was already sitting beside him, whole and unbroken, learning how to shine without apology. 6 months later, Thalaros Thies looked different. The fishing pier had become something more. A training center. A refuge. The first official human Cristari cultural exchange program in 3,000 years. 43 young Cristari learned to embrace abilities their species had spent centuries suppressing. They practiced emotional channeling, structural stabilization, the art of witnessing pain without being destroyed by it, and they learned from humans who were experts at feeling everything all at once and somehow surviving anyway. Caleb ran the human side of the program, teaching emotional grounding techniques that had no business working but did. His father helped, sharing stories about weathering storms, both literal and metaphorical. Turns out Fisherman knew a lot about resilience. Lisa taught the Cristari side, demonstrating what refractive abilities could become when shame didn't shackle them. She could channel ambient emotions from an entire district now, transforming stress into something useful. Community anxiety became collaborative energy. Collective grief became motivating determination. She didn't break anymore, she transformed. It's strange, she told Caleb one morning, watching students practice resonance exercises on the pier. A year ago I was exiled, fragmenting, convinced I was defective. Now I'm teaching others that our supposed flaws are actually evolution. Character development is weird like that. She laughed. That particular sound still made his chest warm. Humans have the strangest way of summarizing profound transformation. We're efficient. You're chaos. That too. Theln passed away 3 months into the program, ancient body finally giving out. But he died content, light pulsing steady gold to the end. His last words were to Leslie. You proved what I always believed. Cristari who feel deeply don't break. They become bridges. Thank you for carrying that truth forward. They scattered his fragments in the ocean during sunset. Every student attended. Every fragment caught the light, refracting it into colors that looked like hope. The Cristari government officially condemned the program. Unofficially, 3 more groups of young refractive Cristari showed up asking for training. The delegation leader who demanded Lisa's deportation quietly resigned. Rumors said she'd been manifesting refractive abilities herself and could no longer maintain the hypocrisy. Marcus built a memorial for his wife in the town square, a sculpture of a woman examining crystalline structures, notebook in hand, expression caught between curiosity and hope. The plaque read, "Dr. Alara Reeves. She believed broken things hold the most light." She was right. Caleb visited it every morning before work, placing fresh flowers his mother would have loved. The fishing community adopted Cristari students like particularly strange cousins, taught them to sail, to swear properly, to understand that humans showed affection through insults, and fed people to demonstrate care. In return, the Cristari taught structural engineering that made boats nearly indestructible, emotional meditation techniques that helped fishermen process trauma, and the radical concept that feeling things wasn't weakness. Integration happened slowly, then all at once. 8 months after Lysa's resurrection, the first human Cristari bonded pair formed. Not her and Caleb, though people assumed. A gruff fisherman named Ko, and a shy Cristari named Veln, who'd been absorbing his grief about his dead wife for weeks before they both realized what was happening. "She makes me feel less alone," Ko admitted, confused and grateful. "He makes me feel like feeling things is acceptable," Veln said, light pulsing uncertain purple. They started having coffee together, then breakfast. Then Ko invited Veln on his boat, and she spent the entire day channeling his ambient stress, turning it into structural improvements for his vessel. 3 weeks later, they were inseparable. The town threw them a bonding ceremony that confused both species' cultural protocols and somehow worked anyway. Humans brought food, Cristari brought light displays. Everyone cried, which was apparently universal. Caleb and Lisa attended together, sitting in the back, watching something they'd started accidentally become permanent. "They're calling us the catalyst couple," Lisa whispered. "Pressure to make it official is building." "Official how?" "Bonding ceremony. Public declaration. The thing Ko and Veln just did." Caleb considered this. "Do you want that?" "Do you?" I asked first. "I died and came back to life for you. I think my intentions are clear." He laughed, taking her hand. Cool crystal against warm skin. Familiar as breathing now. "Fair point. So yes?" "Obviously yes." "Then we'll figure out the ceremony thing. Probably argue about human versus Cristari traditions. Compromise on something that satisfies nobody and makes everyone cry anyway." "That's the most romantic thing you've ever said." "I'm good at romance. You're adequate at romance." "I'll take adequate." Their ceremony happened 2 months later, at the pier where everything started. Caleb wore his father's formal fishing vest. Lisa wore light patterns that Cristari reserved for sacred moments. Denna officiated because she'd become the program's unofficial emotional diplomat. The vows were simple. "Caleb, you asked me to ask why you were hurting. I'm asking for the rest of my life." "Lysa, you made me visible when everyone else looked through me. I'm staying visible with you." The crowd erupted. Humans cheered. Cristari pulsed synchronized light in celebration. Fragments from Theln's memorial drifted past on the wind like blessings from someone who'd waited 3,000 years to see this moment. Marcus cried, admitted it freely. "Your mother would have loved her." "I know." "You did good, son. You saw someone hurting and didn't look away. That's the bravest thing humans do." Life settled into new rhythms. Caleb worked on boats and trained students. Lisa taught Cristari and occasionally saved structures from stress fractures. They had coffee every morning at sunrise, argued about whose turn it was to cook, fell asleep on the pier during meteor showers. Normal life, just with more bioluminescence. 1 year after the storm, a Cristari research vessel arrived. Official delegation, high-ranking scientists, the works. They'd come to study the refractive phenomenon and determine if it was replicable. Lysa met them at the landing pad, light steady and unintimidated. "We heard a Cristari survived complete fragmentation and reconstructed," the lead scientist said. "We need to understand how." Human emotional resonance provided grounding during reconstruction. Want the technical details or the simple version? Both. She gave them 6 hours of data, testimony from Thelen's final notes, and demonstration of her current abilities. They took samples, ran scans, argued about quantum emotional resonance theory. Finally, the lead scientist spoke. This changes everything. If refractive abilities can be trained instead of suppressed, we could revolutionize Crystari adaptation rates, increase species survival probability by 40% within 2 generations. Will the purity movement accept that? The purity movement is dying. They've lost 3 seats in the last election cycle. Young Crystari are demanding change. She paused. They're demanding to learn what you're teaching here. Then send them. We've got space. The scientist's light flickered surprise. You'd train them? After what we did to you? You didn't do anything, a broken system did. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in evolution. 6 new Crystari students arrived the following month, then 12 more, then 30. The training center expanded. More human volunteers joined. More Crystari learned that feeling things wouldn't destroy them. Integration accelerated. 2 years after the storm, Thalaros II became the official first contact point for human Crystari cooperation. Ambassadors visited. Protocols were established, treaties signed. But the real change happened quietly, in daily moments. A Crystari student learning to laugh without shame. A human fisherman realizing his grief could be witnessed without judgment. 2 species learning that their differences could be bridges instead of walls. And at the center of it all, a question that started everything. Why are you hurting? 3 words that changed a species. Caleb and Lissa stood on their pier 5 years later, watching the sunset paint the ocean in colors that still had no names. The settlement had grown. The program thrived. Humans and Crystari worked together like it had always been this way. Do you ever regret it? Lissa asked. That first morning, walking up to the broken alien everyone avoided? Every day. She turned, light flashing surprised purple. I regret not doing it sooner, he clarified. Imagine if I'd asked that question a week earlier, a month. We could have had more time. We have all the time now. That's my point. Should have started the clock earlier. She leaned against him, light pulsing content gold. Humans really are chaos. Best kind. Adequate kind. I'll take adequate. A young Crystari student ran past, chasing a fisherman's kid, both laughing. Neither species saw anything strange about it anymore. This was just life now. Lissa watched them with something close to wonder. You know what the strangest part is? I spent my whole life before you thinking I was defective, broken, wrong. Then you asked one simple question and everything changed. The question wasn't special. Yes, it was. Nobody asks why someone's hurting. They just look away, pretend not to notice. Move on to comfortable topics. Her light pulsed thoughtful purple. You didn't. You saw pain and walked toward it instead of away. That's the most human thing possible. Or the most stupid. Same thing, probably. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge. Somewhere behind them, students practiced emotional channeling. Fishermen sang old songs. 2 species that had no business working together built something neither could have created alone. And it all started because one quiet human refused to look away when everyone else did. Because he asked a question that seemed obvious but was actually revolutionary. Why are you hurting? 3 words. 1 species saved, 2 people who found each other in the exact moment both needed to be found. That's humanity. That's what humans do. They see someone breaking and they ask why. They sit beside pain instead of fleeing from it. They offer stability to chaos and somehow both become stronger. Lissa's light pulsed steady now. No cracks, no shame, no fear. Just the quiet contentment of someone who learned that being seen is the most transformative force in the galaxy. And beside her, Caleb watched the ocean with the same quiet satisfaction of someone who learned that making others visible was the highest form of being human. The tide came in. The stars came out. Two beings who shouldn't have survived found themselves thriving instead. Because someone asked a question. Because someone cared enough to stay. Because looking away when something breaks is easy, but asking why it's breaking is humanity at its finest. That's the lesson Thalaros II taught the galaxy. Don't fix broken things by being stronger than them. Fix them by refusing to look away when they hurt. The rest is just details. In the end, Thalaros II didn't just survive a storm. It learned a quiet truth humanity keeps rediscovering like it's brand new every century. We don't fix what's breaking by being unbreakable. We fix it by staying long enough to listen. Caleb didn't save Lysa because he was stronger. He saved her because he refused to look away. And somehow, that ordinary choice, embarrassingly simple, infuriatingly human, reshaped two species that spent millennia pretending vulnerability was a glitch instead of a gift. But here's the uncomfortable question the universe keeps echoing back at us. If one quiet human asking, "Why are you hurting?" can rewrite an entire civilization, what could happen if more of us actually asked it? And if storms, cosmic or emotional, remember everything poured into them, what pieces of ourselves are we leaving in the weather around us? And deeper still, how many defective people are actually just waiting for one person crazy enough to believe their evolution in disguise? Before you vanish into the next star system or into your YouTube recommendations, leave me a sign that you reach the end. Comment the word refraction, the heart word of this story. Tell me your city or planet, so our little HFY fleet knows how far this resonance travels. And if this story made you feel anything, from awe to, wow, I need therapy, hit subscribe, like, hype this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that being seen is a kind of superpower, and then follow the light to the next video in the end card. Because storms keep coming, but so do we. And humanity. Humanity always shows up.